and I crossed from the Mehran border. And you saw while showing that I'm at the border. And that time when I was in Iraq, and I was very restless. When I reached there, when I landed, I thought the toughest story for me will be covering the women, how they are being treated in Iran, and the whole hijab thing around. Will I get to shoot women without hijab and all? Women study there, and in fact, Tehran, there's a very good concept, a very unique one, that if I'm a male and I want to, let's say, marry any girl, and I will propose that girl, I want to marry, then that girl will, the first shart, pehli shart hai ki you have to leave your parents' house. My name is Saurabh Shukla. I was with NDTV for good 12 years, and I was part of that old team. I'd left NDTV after Adani's takeover, and we started this Red Mic, three ex-NDTV people, trying to build something. I'm trying to give it back to Mother Nature. What all I've achieved through NDTV, I'm trying to give it back. So I was the first Indian journalist who had reached Iran while the war was on and off. It had started again day before yesterday. So I was sitting with a journalist friend, and few journalists, we were sitting in Forest Correspondence Club, and usually meet there every evening. So I said that I told my friends that I'm thinking that I should go to Iran to cover war. So they said this is a very foolish idea. America is bombing civilian buildings and everything. So I said, this is the important thing. I should go there and show it. That's how it is. And every Indian journalist is there in Israel, and they are showing that, bombing is happening and we are going to bunkers. So especially I should be there in Iran and to show what is like there, how people are fighting. And there is a lot of mispreconception and a lot of fake news regarding Iran also. Because in India, all we know, what I knew about Iran as a journalist also is through Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and so on. So I thought that is a very good opportunity to be in Iran and try and show what is it like. Then our journalist friend said that you are going to Iran, and then you be mentally prepared that you're not going to get American visa ever. So I said, come on, I don't want to go to America. It's so fine. If I don't go to America, मतलब क्या मतलब मुझे नर्क में भेज देंगे भगवान मरने के बाद. So I don't want to go to America. And why would I want to go to America while they are not respecting a journalist who is going to Iran to cover as a journalist? So it's fine. I said, I don't want to go to America, though I have American visa, but I'm not going to go myself also. Because I know that now if I go there and then I'll be harassed and I'll stop. So it was difficult to reach to Iran at that point of time. I didn't have the journalist visa. I took pilgrim visa along with my colleague Saurabh Shahi. He is in China right now on fellowship, so that is why he is not here. So we decided that there's no direct flight to Iran.
100% ಶುದ್ಧ ಶ್ರೀಗಂಧ ಎಣ್ಣೆಯಿಂದ ತಯಾರಾಗಿದೆ. ಅಸಲಿ ಉತ್ತಮಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿದೆ. ಮೈಸೂರ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ ಸೋಪ್ ನನ್ನ ರಾಯಲ್ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿ ರಿಚುವಲ್.
And Iranians in Delhi, they were very scared and afraid of giving me J visa, journalist visa. So I took pilgrim visa, and then because there was no direct flight, and then I took visa of Iraq. So I flew from Delhi to Sharjah, Sharjah to Baghdad, and 17 hours drive to Tehran. And I crossed from the Mehran border, and you saw while showing that I'm at the border. And that time when I was in Iraq, and I was very restless because I was not sure that will they allow me to enter, because that time they were at war. They're still at war, but they were not very open to the idea of journalists coming, and they were not sure of the journalists who are coming to Iran to cover. So I was not very sure that they'll allow me or not at the Mehran border. But there was a gentleman on immigration. He was very nice. He said, "You're Hindi?" I said, "Yes, I'm Hindi." He said, "Shah Rukh Khan, you know Shah Rukh Khan?" I said, "Yeah, I know Shah Rukh Khan." "You have met Shah Rukh Khan?" I said, "No, I have not met Shah Rukh Khan. It's very difficult to meet Shah Rukh Khan." So he allowed me in Iran, and then we drove down to Tehran for 15. It took us 15 hours to reach Tehran. So it is, it's Tehran. Whenever you listen about Iran and Tehran, first thing strikes to your mind is, before the war, is hijab, and Islamic rule, oppression, lot of things. You know, yeah, that's why I've said that most of Indians, especially liberals in India, they know Iran through the eyes of the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Reuters, and so on. When I reached Tehran and I saw Tehran, Tehran is, I think, much, much better than several cities in Europe also. They have, out of, I think, आप लोग जितने भी लोग हैं, कोई गया है अभी तक ईरान, apart from, I think, I know Mohsin. Sir, you've been there to Iran? I think, yeah, yes, you've been to Iran. So Tehran, when I reached Tehran, it was very, very different. And it had good roads, good buildings, and the very Persians are usually very, very creative. So if you enter Tehran and you don't know what they are facing, you don't need to speak with anyone. They have decorated their buildings with murals, posters. So the first poster, the first mural I saw is of a school bag crying. And they've written Minab 168, nothing at all. And then I saw a poster of Donald Trump where they have put a tape and saying Strait of Hormuz and they have shut Trump. So the first day we wanted to cover the demonstrations they are having every night to show solidarity and their show of strength to IRGC and their so on. So when we went there and we saw the people work during the day and after 7 p.m. they go to the nearest square with the flag, with Iranian flag, with flag of Hezbollah and axis of resistance and so on. So in the night for 4 hours they protest, they demonstrate. And then they go back to their homes and they sleep and again in the morning they go to their offices. So it was very, so I met a woman, she was 73 years old and I was talking and she was holding a picture of Ali Khamenei and she was crying. So I went up to her and said, how long you've been coming? She said the day Khamenei was assassinated and the second day I've started coming to this place. I can barely walk and it takes me 45 minutes to walk till here and I go back, but I come every day. So I did, कब तक आती रहोगी? कब तक, how long you are going to be here? And she said, till the time we get the justice. And it was not just one woman. It was like thousands of people like her. She was there and, so on. So I met a friend, not a friend, a friend's friend. He used to teach in Stanford University. So usually during the war, you see people fleeing out of the country. If let's say I'm dual citizen, if I'm citizen of America, then I will not stay in Iran, I will go to America and stay there. So this friend's friend Naveed, his name is Naveed Zarriwal. So he was teaching in Stanford University. He quit his job and he came to Tehran during the war. I said, you had this fantastic job in Stanford University and you were very critical of the Islamic regime. Why are you back to, I did his interview, it is there on Red Mic also. So he said, see, it is not about the regime, it's about my country. And I want to die here. If I have to die, then I have to die here for my country. And country is beyond anyone, any leader and any regime. So not but, and then he is there and he is now volunteer in air defense of IRGC, he is volunteering, doing a lot of things. And there are a lot of people I've met in Iran who have come back from Turkey, London, China, wherever they are working, and they've come back to Iran and they are doing whatever they could. In fact, one senior director, film producer, he was very critical of Islamic regime of Iran, and he was sent in exile. And then he also came back. He said, whatever good or bad, I'm going to die here. So I've seen this Persian people coming back to their country and fighting. So when the Trump said that we'll wipe out the entire civilization, they got very, they all came back and they said, we are going to be, you cannot wipe out our civilization. In fact, the death of Khamenei also kind of had a huge impact on Iran and the people of the world also, because Khamenei was not hiding. In fact, before the war happened, Ali Lirjani, very close, he was number 2 technically in Iran. So he went to Ali Khamenei and requested that, sir, war is coming. And America and Israel, they are talking, but they will attack. So we'll take you to a safer place. And he said that, no, I am 85, 86. I don't want to go and hide in bunker. While if you can protect all my countrymen, then you take me to bunker. If you're not, then don't take me. And he was there in his house and compound. In fact, where his house is in Tehran is not a very posh area. You know, we are sitting in a very, very posh area here. For that matter, in Delhi, where I am, it's Lutyens Delhi, where all ministers and prime ministers and so on are very protected and very posh. His house is not. It was a very mid-level area. You know, just 20 meters away, there's some fruit vendor is selling fruit. Their medicine shop, very, very, very mediocre place. And I was very surprised to see. And then people told me that this is the place, you know. And his entire compound was bombarded. You know, all know that his granddaughter died, his wife died, his daughter died, and his son-in-law died. One son-in-law died, and so on. And Mustafa Khamenei, who's now new supreme leader, is also he was also critically wounded. So what my takeaway from Iran, from my reporting, I've been to 4 or 5 cities there, that civilization and the one thought what the common Irani they have in their mind and heart, that if we have to go down, then we'll go down fighting, and we will not accept the hegemony of America. While you have killed our supreme leader and you've been attacking school, and the Minab also played a huge role behind uniting the whole Iran and coming to this. So, and I think I'll open to the people, because I know you have a lot of questions, I'm told, and anything you want to know from me, and I can go whole night talking about Iran and my coverage. But if you want to ask anything, please be open to any question. I'm open to any question and about the position of Jews, the Christians in Iran. If you want to know any cultural aspect of it, the political aspect of it, the deterrence, and anything. Why again war is now there again, and America is bombarding Iran, and this time also in the morning, Kuwait and Bahrain for the first time they have attacked Iran. They have bombed Bandar Abbas port today for the first time. So escalation has started again. And sir, I think Feroz sir has asked me that, you know, this war is going to get over or not. So in my particular opinion, what I've been talking to a lot of experts and my sources in Iran and in other places as well, I think there'll be a huge war coming. Not today, tomorrow, maybe end of this year or on the beginning of next year, because this is a very strategic ceasefire. Because oil prices were going up and American economy was also under pressure and so on. So it is a very strategic ceasefire which happened in June, and I think everybody is now re-strategizing, remapping and re-evaluating their strategies, and I think big war will happen because Iran has decided that they will not back down and they will not lose control over Hormuz. And Trump himself said that my prime motive to attack Iran was to control Kharg Island, which is the crown jewel of Iran. It has the oil resources of Iran, so he wants to control it. So I think this something will happen, and this time it is going to be very, very huge. And but let's see how it goes. So I think everybody can ask anything they want to. I'm very happy to answer it.
Like you said, you spoke to so many women, right? So how are like women like in mainstream media, we've seen how women are portrayed, Iranian women are portrayed. So how are they actually like?
I think the very interesting question. So when I reached there, when I landed, so I thought the toughest story for me will be covering the women, how they are being treated in Iran, and the whole hijab thing around. Will I get to shoot women without hijab and all? So I was staying at a place called Wali Asar. Wali Asar is a street there, and so in the evening we came out. So there's a local market right outside Wali Asar street, if I'm pronouncing it right. Walias. Walias street. So there's a local market, you know, and I saw women, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15, hundreds of women who were going without hijab. It was the easiest story was to cover them without hijab, and I just opened the camera and started talking about you see that we are standing in the market and you see the women. So definitely there is a hijab law, but they are not enforcing it anymore. I think they have also realized that it is not going to go in their favor. Definitely, this whole law came through referendum, plebiscite, I think rather say. So it will go through plebiscite, but they are not enforcing it. So on train stations, so they have written, you are requested to follow Islamic hijab. Not you should follow Islamic hijab, or you are advised to, or you have to. So you are requested to. So they are not imposing it anymore. There was a hijab police also. Now they put to some other task. They are not enforcing it anymore. So it's up to the women in Iran whether they want to wear hijab or not. But they are now allowed. In fact, Mahsa Amini case. A lot of people talk about Mahsa Amini case. She was died of police brutality. She did not die of police brutality. She died of brain hemorrhage. The whole footage is there. But definitely, this is my position my position, journalistic position, that you should not tell people what to eat and what to wear. So, but the journalistic point of view, this is my journalistic point of view. But legally, Mahsa Amini was not murdered. She died of brain hemorrhage. She got rattled. She was taken to the police station. That's what they do. So earlier, if you're not wearing hijab, the hijab police will take you to a local police station. Then they'll call your parents, and then they'll so on, call your parents and ask them, advise them to daughter को बोलो, लड़की को बोलो, बेटी को बोलो कि hijab पहने, पर अभी not anymore. I think in Iran, women are more educated than men there, and women study a lot. If I know correctly, there is reservation for men in universities, because women go to universities more than men there, and they're very, very educated. And people who know Iran and who've been going to Iran, definitely every country has problems. They also have problems when it comes to a lot of things. But women study there, and in fact, Tehran, there's a very good concept, and very unique one, that if I'm a male and I want to, let's say, marry any girl, and I will propose that girl, I want to marry you, then that girl will, the first shart, पहली शर्त है कि you have to leave your parents' house. You have to build your own house. The kitchen should be different. I will not be staying with your parents. We can be on second floor and your parents can be on the ground floor, but we'll have to live separately. You have to take care of me, and it is the women call, लड़की का call है कि वो आपसे शादी करती है या नहीं करती है. So people are very critical, and in fact in Tehran the divorce rate is above 50%. And in whole Iran, divorce rate is around 42-43%. And in Tehran, it is more than 50%, 51-52%. And most of the time, women who call off the marriage.
ಮತ್ತಷ್ಟು ವಿಶೇಷ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡಲು ಮತ್ತು ಹೊಸ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತಿಳಿಯಲು
EDina.com ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಚಾನೆಲ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ
ಮತ್ತು ಬೆಲ್ ಐಕಾನ್ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ.